Welcome to a brand new episode of the Go Rhody Podcast. I'm Scott Brand, your host. Today we're doing a season preview of the Dayton Flyers. I have with me one of the top content guys for Dayton basketball. His name is Damon Durbin. Damon, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about the Flyers with you today.
Well, I have to ask you another question. You have another name, don't you? It's AKA Professionally Loud. I'm unprofessionally loud. How'd you get that name before we get started? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I started that as the Twitter name, I don't know. It's been probably 12, 13 years now. It's been kind of
Wow.
a long time. The account, the Pro Loud account that I run on Twitter, I use it to track all of our professional Flyers, guys that have gone on to play pro basketball, and kind of came up with the name because you've probably seen some of the Dayton stuff. I know you've been on the message
Yeah.
boards and everything. That
Oh,
loud is kind of our thing. The LOWD. It's a fan inside joke, and it was really popular at the time that I started the account.
I
Um,
went in the forum and I asked those guys, who should I have on? Who's the best guy? And there were two people, but when I heard your name, I'm like, really? Okay. Well, I just want to do a little bit of a note. This PowerPoint is 26 slides. So I'm going to
awesome.
just
Well, that's a
confirm.
lot of Flyer content, but I'm ready for it.
I
So.
know. I could tell you are after our pregame call last week that it's very evident you're a high energy guy. So I'm going to convert this PowerPoint into a PDF. I'll put my email in the comments section of the YouTube channel. If you guys, any of the viewers tonight want that PDF, just shoot me an email. And the only thing I'm asking, I'm begging. No, I'm not begging, but we'd love to have you subscribe. We do a lot of Dayton basketball and other teams in the Atlantic 10. So anyway, let's get right to the show now. What do we expect from this year's Dayton basketball team? I know that's a tough question.
It is. It's always a tough question, but Scott, I think when we talked about it, last week in our little preview, right?
Yeah.
We always expect the Flyers to make the tournament. That's Dayton fans. That's what we want, and when it doesn't happen, we're upset. That
Yeah.
that's always the expectation, whether it's fair or not, right? There's some years that's more of a fair expectation than others. This year is one where we really don't know, right? We have so many new guys. It's great that we have Javon, Bennett, and Amelie coming back uh, in the starting lineup, but everyone else in most of the rotation is going to be new. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys click. But at the same time, like I said, that's the Dayton basketball expectation from the Flyer faithful is that they make the tournament, and so I think it's not going to be any different this year. That's what we're going to want to see.
You do have you're missing three of your top scorers, but that's not too bad. VCU's lost six, but
Yeah,
you might have your version of the big three, it looks like. And just to digress again,
yeah,
you were telling me that you very rarely lose players
yeah. I
in
mean,
this
so
report.
in the NIL era, we've done really well at kind of keeping the teams together. Just the last couple of years at least hasn't been a lot of turnover. Like last year's team, we lost around Holmes to the draft from the year before, right?
Oh yeah,
But
that's
you know,
different.
yeah, yeah. But of the core guys, we didn't really have anybody transfer out that was a contributor. We got Posh Alexander and Zed Key in, hoping that they would add to kind of the mix. Things didn't go quite as well as we hoped there, but the rest of the team was kind of intact. This is kind of the first year where we're going to see, pretty big turnover, throughout the roster, with a lot of new guys coming in. And so it's going to be a little bit different from Flyer fans. And, you see it if you kind of follow the boards, you follow Twitter, a lot of people, especially during the exhibition game there, they were saying, who are these guys? And they
Oh
don't know who a lot
really?
of the guys are yet. Yeah. It's, going to be using these next couple of weeks here, even into the early season, right? For people to figure out who they are, who these guys are, what they do well, what kind of different lineup combinations we're going to see. So that's definitely going to be different for us.
Well, after talking to you for an hour last week, I know who they are. I
Yeah,
don't know who they will be,
yeah.
but
If everybody could just get in a room with me for an hour, I could give
yeah.
you some info, get some people up to speed, maybe.
We even covered the managers and the walkouts. Coach's son is on the team this year. That's going to be good.
Yep, yep, yep. Makai Grant returns. Yep, he's been a walk on the last couple of years. So it's always good to to see that Grant 33 sitting on the end of the bench.
Well, let's just dive right into the PowerPoint right now. Starting right here, good looking team. Of course, Latong is on the top. How did I do pronouncing his name? Okay.
That was good. We talked right before we started, right, Scott?
Yeah.
I told you I gave you the free pass. The Flyer fans, we call him Frenchie, to try to avoid having to do the pronunciation. But
Frenchie.
I think you did a good job. Yeah,
Someone really was a little lazy with that nickname
yeah,
and did a little better than that. Okay. You guys were in the top 25 in December, thinking you were going to be maybe a fifth or sixth seed, maybe after
yeah,
beating
yeah,
UConn by a
absolutely,
lot. Uh,
absolutely.
I was looking at the schedule and I did see you guys continue to do well, and you even beat Marquette. So I thought you were right there with the quad one wins. What do you?
Yeah, the Marquette game was huge last year. That was the one that we thought kind of, based on, the results up to that point, that was going to put us over the top, right? We thought that we'd kind of done enough. And Neil Sullivan, the athletic director at Dayton, he takes a big role in the scheduling. He takes a lot of pride in the scheduling. He's done a really great job the last couple of years of, doing what the teams in our conference need to do, Scott, and that's get some marquee wins in the non-conference because you can't count on things to be there within the conference. You're not going to get those quad ones. You're not going to get the quantity, of opportunities that teams in the Big Ten are going to get where they're playing a quad one every night. So we have to do our work in the non-conference. We thought last year they did it, and then you'll see what tripped them up as you look down at the conference. Those three in a row: George Washington, Massachusetts, George Mason to start off the conference schedule. Undid all the goodwill, that we did in the non-conference. So you got to avoid that. It's a two-part thing, right? You schedule well in the non-con, you win enough of those games, you put yourself in position. But when it comes to the A-10, you still got to perform. You got to avoid those landmine losses. And the Flyers just weren't able to do that last year.
It's kind of strange because like your OOC schedule was so strong,
Yeah.
and Atlantic 10 is a good conference, and they're
Yep.
usually around seven, but nothing compared to the North Carolinas and Iowa States. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, Mason ended up being not as bad of a loss as kind of we thought at the time. Especially being at home, we don't, the Flyers don't expect to lose at home in front of the sold out crowd. But George Mason ended up being a heck of a team last year, so really no shame in that. But the George Washington, the Massachusetts back to back to start off, and especially George Washington being such a blowout, really took a lot of wind out of the sails.
now the only thing I could see as a pivotal loss before the three that you spoke about is the Cincinnati one. That
Yeah, the
did
Cincinnati one
that
was
turn it
tough.
around, or
It was a neutral court, but in Cincinnati, in downtown, not on campus.
Mhm.
Cincinnati at that point was playing all right. They ended up not exactly having a great year themselves either. But that was one that you felt like could have gone either way. You see the score there, 66-59. We didn't shoot
Yeah.
the ball well, and we're down by a lot more of that game, and actually had to come back towards the end to make it a little bit closer. But yeah, that was a tough one, and kind of excited that series is actually moving on campus this year. We have a home and home with them now. We'll go to Cincinnati this year, and then the following year they'll come to UD Arena.
Amazing. And everyone's talking about how it's impossible to get a P4 game in
Yeah,
the mid-major, and you guys get not one, but how many this year? At least three, maybe
we
four.
we have a lot this year. We have a lot of a lot of the non-conference. Shoot, we could play up to three ACC games this year. We have Florida State coming to town. We could play Miami uh, in the tournament down there in Orlando at Thanksgiving, and we play Virginia in a neutral site in Charlotte. So yeah, we have a strong schedule.
You might even play BYU.
Yeah, that's that second game of the MTE down there in Orlando. We could either play BYU or Miami, and
Outstanding possibly.
BYU would be exciting. You see AJ DeBonsa up close. I hope that happens.
So then we go into last season. It was a bad season for you guys at 23-11. I'm scratching my head. You even had a 12-6 record. You didn't get into the NCAA, but not too many teams are going to be doing that anymore now that they've changed. They have the super conferences and they won't play you the P4s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's those kind of like those two extra losses, right? I mean, honestly, we win those UMass and the George Washington games right at the beginning of the schedule, and I think we end up in the tournament. It's the margin of error is really that thin now, for schools in the Atlantic 10.
Well, if anyone's going to make it with an out-large, you guys are with your schedule if you manage to
Right. Yeah,
turn
that's
some
that's the
W's
thing. That's
early.
what I said. You got to give hats off to Neil Sullivan for giving us that opportunity. The fact that he's able to schedule
Yeah.
some of these Power Four schools that gives us the chance.
Yeah, I still don't really know. You gave me a couple of reasons why, but I'm not
Yeah.
positive why he does it. But he's just a great athletic director, and you're losing a trifecta of really good players, and obviously
Yeah.
Santos and Cheek. What was Cheeks like? He was a pretty good player, wasn't he?
Yeah, we loved Enoch Cheeks. I mean, he was one of the guys that started off a little bit stronger in the season than what he
Mhm.
finished. But he's an athletic, do everything guy, high energy. He guards. He was, like I said, he scored a lot more at the beginning of the season, kind of than he did towards the end. But definitely, a guy that we miss. The guy's playing professional basketball over in Belgium, I think. Now, definitely someone that we're gonna miss this year.
And then Malachi, I thought he would be staying with you guys, and he's off to greener pastures possibly. But you'll have a new point guard this season, and
Yeah, we're hoping Javon Bennett steps up to the mantle and becomes that lead guard. Kind of last year, you saw we had kind of the trio of small point guards with Amelie and Javon and Posh Alexander. Javon obviously is only one of those guys left, and then kind of the other guys that are going to be handling the ball are going to be a lot bigger. So that's going to be one of the things I think that we notice from last year to this year is it kind of throughout the lineup is a lot more size.
didn't realize that Javon, is this correct here? Am I getting the columns right? He shot 39% from three.
Yeah, so Javon Bennett is someone that has really really worked on the 3-point shot throughout his career. He started out as kind of a high volume, low
Yeah.
percentage guy, and last year really came into his own as far as keeping a high volume, but then starting to make a high percentage. 39% is great. I think he could hit 40 this year. To be honest with you, if the trend continues, he shot the ball very well in the NIT. Just hope to see him continue to progress and to stay aggressive because, he's a senior, he's a leader on the team. It's going to be kind of his team. I'm hopeful. I have kind of high hopes for him and what he can accomplish this year.
The only thing I fear is this Latang thing. Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, not just Dayton fans.
Yeah,
Around even the Atlantic 10 Conference gave him a second team. There's a lot of pressure on him to do. He didn't have, let's say, a double-double his freshman year. He had 7 points and 4.3 rebounds in 16 minutes or so. So, but I understand that. And overall, you're looking at his game, and I think everyone's high on him.
yeah, you can. I mean, you look at the tools with him.
Yeah.
It's tantalizing, right? Yeah, there's just not a lot of 7'1" guys on the planet that can do some of the things that you can do. Skill wise, athleticism wise. You want him to get stronger. You want him to get tougher. Like you said, you probably want him to rebound a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
But the skill level that he brings is just so unique for that size. You see him play, with the French national team, the U20 over the summer, in playing well, and having a couple of big games over there, and it just it's hard not to get wrapped up in some of the excitement of what could be. And so by all accounts, he's been working hard. He's hit the weights. We're expecting big things from him, and it's just whether or not he can live up to it. And like I said, he had a good freshman season, and we'll see if he can take that next step as people kind of expect him to.
And then we're going into last season, and we were both talking about some things, and some of
Mm-hmm.
these are your ideas. Even though you had a lot of great players, you were telling me they weren't a cohesive team.
Yeah, it just things didn't mesh right. On the floor, off the floor. On the floor was obvious. The team just didn't fit together very well. One of the things that I mentioned, me and that we're excited about this year is the additional size kind of throughout the lineup. That was a problem for them last year. Having three small guards is tough,
Yes.
especially when a lot of times you want to play a couple of them together because sometimes they were the guys that were playing the hardest or giving you the best looks, but then those are easier matchups to exploit. And so it became a bit of an issue last year, with figuring lineups out, and just hopeful that they can kind of recover from that this year, and have these different looks that let us play kind of in a different way. And kind of just see a different team out there right this year, and see a different ability to match up defensively. And I think that'll help. I think that'll make a big difference. But yeah, that was definitely something that was a weakness last year. Was kind of just the way the roster fit together up and down.
And then for this year, we already spoke about losing the top three scorers, but the length you're talking about in the
Yeah,
backcourt, and it really makes a difference defensive wise.
get away with maybe one undersized guy, but when you're undersized throughout the lineup, even if
Yeah.
you have a 7'1" guy at center, right?
Hmm.
When you're undersized everywhere else, and that was a lot of our problem, right? Like Enoch Cheeks is playing, the 3 and the 4. He's 6'4". He's a great athlete, but it's just hard to make up that length, especially if you have two of the small guys in the backcourt like we often did, right? With either Javon and Amelie, Amelie and Posh and Javon, however you matched it up, having two of those three on the floor at the same time just made it hard. You're giving up height kind of all the way up until you get to center last year. So, hoping that the additional length this year, the De'Shayne Montgomery, the Keonte Jones, getting some of these big long guys in there. Dirk Hack, another long guy. Hoping that that's going to make a difference this year. That we're going to be able to kind of defend a little bit better, with some of those additions.
Now, what happened in that UConn game? Because they just were a great team, and
Yeah, I
everything
mean,
you're saying didn't probably prevail in that game.
we played really well the whole time in Maui. We lost two of those three games, but they were all close. It felt like a little bit of Maui magic. We were, the backcourt was working at that point. The guys, were defending so well and so aggressively. You get in that
Yeah.
small gym. Sometimes shots fall a little bit more. They always joke about the soft rims in Maui. And so I think all that stuff kind of was working at that point, and just things that didn't carry over, and that frankly matchups got exploited. As the season goes on, there's more film on you, right? and
Yeah.
and other teams make adjustments that maybe in a 3-day tournament, off the mainland, teams don't make the adjustments quite as well, and kind of the style that we were playing there didn't exactly translate, when we came back home.
So you're saying even though you won one of three, it was a good time there.
Everybody was excited coming out of it. Yeah, I mean that North Carolina game, we took them right down to the wire. Nate Santos hit what we thought was a game tying three, or the foot was on the line.
Wow.
We were close with Iowa State, who was a great team all season. Same thing, came right down to the end. So that there was a lot of good feeling coming out of Maui. I mean, especially whooping UConn at I think that game ended at like 3 o'clock in the morning, East Coast time, going into Thanksgiving Day. But a lot of good feelings coming out of that just it ended up not carrying over, as the season went along.
Now we go to the key returning players, and two of them are just studs. And Bennett, I think he'll have his career season this year.
Yep,
He's
I feel great about Javon, and like I said, if he can shoot it like he did last year, I think he's in for a big season, kind of taking the reins as the point guard this year.
is he jumping at all in that picture? If he is, it's like a
Yeah,
foot.
he might be on his tiptoes, right, Scott? He's
Yeah. Is this AI I'm looking at here?
he does not have far to go to get to the rim.
And then the key new players, Who do you like in this group? I mean, you seem very high on Montgomery. He'll be
Yeah,
starting.
so I think I told you when we talked beforehand. I get to spend a week, around the team every summer when my boys are at basketball camp down at Dayton, and I try to talk to as many people as I can, get as much info for people as I can, and De'Shayne Montgomery kept coming up as someone whose competitiveness was making a difference. That they felt like he's someone that no matter what they were doing was competing and kind of driving the other guys to go hard and try to get a win, whether it was a game they were playing in practice, whether it was something they were messing around doing in the locker room. They felt like De'Shayne Montgomery was someone who's kind of a tone setter, and so he's a guy. And we have a couple of these guys. Durkak is like this that had kind of big years 2 years ago
Yes.
at smaller schools, transferred up and didn't see the success kind of translate. Whether it was opportunity or whether it was the difficulty of being in a Power 5 league, things didn't quite work out for them. And coming back down now to our level, hoping that to see that success again, or to take those lessons learned maybe right from being at the Power 5 level and kind of elevate and get back to where they were, at the stop before. So I think Jordan Durkak, De'Shayne Montgomery are both like that. Bryce Hurd's guy we talked about that came in young to NC State, kind of got thrust into a role that maybe he didn't even think he would have. He reclassified. He's the age of a true freshman this year as a sophomore. So he's a guy that that we could see some things from this year. Shot the ball very well in the exhibition game. So maybe some change there. Malcolm Thomas sat out all year at Villanova, but he's a great athlete. Has an NBA dad. The son of A-10
Yeah,
Thomas,
that's right. You got
Syracuse legend. Yep. And Adam Jai is a guy who people are really excited about too. Another Bronx point guard. We love those guys at UD. We've had kind of a strong lineage, whether it's the Smith brothers or what have you. And so he's another guy that people are excited about. So I like this whole group. These guys are all exciting, and I think that they all can contribute in some way, shape, or form this year.
I kind of feel like Deshaun is looking at me right now.
Yeah.
It's a little off-putting there. The weaknesses, I saw before the Penn State game, the fans were a little bullish on Jacob Connor because they said he was working really hard on his inside game, and a 6'10" guy, it was like 220 or so. That would solve a lot of problems, but I don't know if
Yeah,
it did in the game.
we'll see what
I'm
happens with
excited
Jacob
about that.
Connor. He started in the exhibition game, probably because Durkak was out. Uh, we'll see what happens. I feel like the coaching staff has been higher on Jacob Connor than maybe the fan base has. I think he's a smart guy. He's a guy that I think gets in the right spots on defense. He has the length, but he doesn't necessarily have the athleticism or, like you said, the girth to really make as much of a defensive difference as maybe you'd hope. And so for him, a lot of what it comes down to his value on the floor is going to be whether he's hitting outside shots or not.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a concern about the height up front, especially behind Latong. It seems like Malcolm Thomas is going to be the backup center,
Mhm.
and he checks in at about 6'8". He's a very good athlete though. You know, maybe some Tumani Kamara to his game, hopefully.
Yeah.
Especially on the defensive end, that would go a long way to solve a lot of those problems. But yeah, there's a little bit of concern as far as height in the front court beyond Latong. Like I said, we're a lot bigger in the guards and wings, but that backup center could be an issue as far as having that length that you'd kind of want to see.
Yeah, that's what we had as no true backup center and
Mm-hmm.
not enough depth at three-point land.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's where I said, Jacob Connor, that's, something that could be a ticket to playing time for him if he can hit the threes. He's a guy that likes to shoot them. He's a guy that didn't shoot them very well last year. Now Bryce Hurd is someone that during the exhibition game shot the ball pretty well. And like we talked about, whoever shoots the ball well from 3-point land, especially of those bench guys, they're going to find minutes for them, because that's something that we're going to need off the bench. Our shooting all comes from our smallest guy and our tallest guy, right? Javon
Yes, that's
Bennett and the
right.
Malatong are kind of our two 3-point shooters. And so you want to see somebody on the wing step up and maybe make a higher percentage. And whoever that is, I think, is going to get a lot of minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of unsettling when your second best 3-point shooter is 7'1", but
Yeah, absolutely.
and then the strengths, we keep going back into that. It's also the strongest schedule according to the board since 2004. And
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the schedule gives you everything you want, right? I mean, you want the
yeah,
opportunities, and they're there. Like you said, we a ton of Power Five teams. We're playing Marquette, we're playing Cincinnati, we're playing Florida State, Virginia, Georgetown, and then even Liberty. Who I saw Ryan Hammer put out his list of his top mid majors this year. He had Liberty number one.
wow.
So those are all good games, and they're going to give us the opportunities. We just got to take advantage of them, right? We got to win enough of them to be able to survive a landmine in the conference, because let's face it, every year, even the best teams in the Atlantic 10, you're going to lose on a Tuesday night at LaSalle, or there's going to be one of those games that doesn't go your way. And so you got to have enough in the non-conference to survive it. Like I said, our problem last year is we had too many of those landmines that we hit.
Yeah.
Despite the strong non-conference, we kind of blew all that goodwill, and that's what we gotta try to avoid this year.
And then let's start to go with the players.
Yeah.
First one is Javon, and he's from your breeding ground, University.
Merrimack's become our feeder system, right?
Some chemistry with Jordan Durkak.
Yep. Him and Jordan Durkak were teammates, at Merrimack for a year. Javon moved on first and let Jordan stay behind and collect some more hardware in that conference. But Javon, I think he led the nation in steals or something as a freshman. He
Wow.
Had a great defensive reputation, and when he signed with Dayton, I think it was thought of as a bench guy, someone that's going to come off the bench and defend, right? Change the pace a little bit, that kind of thing. But he's become, such a valuable player, for the program on and off the floor. The 3-point shooting is what really sets him apart. And if he can, like I said, keep doing that, if he can shoot 40% this year at a high volume, you're going to find him in one of those first two teams, all conference at the end of the season, because he is going to bring that Bulldog mentality on defense. And he's going to have all the opportunities this year. It's going to be kind of just him as that small guard, in the backcourt.
That's why I have you here, Prolo.
Yeah,
you get these tidbits that no one else would get. And then we have Eton Thomas Jr., even though it's Malcolm Thomas.
Yep.
You're going to need a lot from him, but
yeah, he's a guy. I mean, you see it here, right? Like this is quite the pedigree. I mean, he was a big time high school prospect. He went to Villanova and sat out the year. He was a redshirt. And at some point in the offseason, we thought there was a chance he was gonna have to start. I mean, we had that big hole at the 4 spot that Keonte Jones eventually filled, but we thought that Malcolm Thomas might have to fill it. And he showed flashes in the exhibition game that you can see why he has the pedigree that he does. He hasn't played Division I college basketball yet, though. He hasn't been in a real game. So that's where I think this is going to be a useful year for him to develop and to come off the bench, and to get that experience. And hopefully we can keep him around, and then next year he assumes that mantle. But I'm excited to see him play. He's definitely an exciting player type, and has definitely shown some of those flashes.
This guy could be the big difference. Yeah,
Yep.
He might be your best player.
Yeah.
He's not a 3-point specialist, but 14 and 9. He's a double guy.
He's a grown man. He's 23 years old, and he plays like a grown man at the park. He gets to the rim, he bounces off guys, and he scores the basketball. I was reading something the other day that he scored one of the highest in the country in defensive metrics by some of the advanced stats. And so he's someone that I think, we're really excited about. Again, hasn't done it at the highest level, right? He's at Cal State Northridge, but performed really well there. And you got listed up there, right? Everyone that was after him, so that.
Look at that list.
He's highly thought of, and that you see a lot of the best coaches in college basketball on that list. That were recruiting him, a lot of the best programs that wanted him in there. So you got to feel good about that. And like I said, you hate to put too much stock in the exhibition, but it's all we have right now, right?
Yeah.
And he did everything that you would have wanted to see in that exhibition to show, like I said, kind of that he might be able to be that guy. That we need to kind of bolster the starting lineup and be kind of, the three levels, right? You got the point guard, Javon Bennett, you got the center and Amelie, and then you need to have a wing, and it looks like Keonte Jones might be able to be that guy. It's just going to be seeing if he can do it night in and night out, like I said, at a little bit of a higher level than what he's done it before.
He'll play the 4. I know the 4 isn't.
Yeah, he's gonna be the power forward. Like I said, he's listed 6'6", 6'7". He's got the long arms. So he's someone that I think, and like I said, he's strong. He's a little bit older. I think he's going to be well suited to kind of handle that role, despite maybe being a little bit shorter than what you would want.
He made you wait a little bit too when he decided on their team.
Yeah. He was a late signing. I think end of July. A funny story about him. I didn't tell you this, Scott, when we talked about the first time. His signing, the news of it was broken by Obi Toppin. Obi was in town hosting his basketball camp, and during his media availability, he kind of let it slip that Keonte Jones was going to be signing. The local media, nobody knew that yet. It hadn't been announced, and so it was kind of funny that Obi was the one that kind of let the cat out of the bag about him signing. And sure enough, it was confirmed, within 24 hours that it was true. But yeah, it's kind of a funny story about Keonte.
Obi could do whatever he wants, right?
Yeah, he's the mayor in Dayton, Ohio. That is for sure.
And then you really like this guy at 2, De'Shayne.
Love De'Shayne Montgomery. Like I said, just from talking to people over the summer, and everybody raved about him. What a competitor he is. What a gym rat he is. And how that influence has spread to other guys on the team. Someone that I'm definitely excited about. He had some good outings at Georgia. One of those guys, like I said, that his playing time really varied a lot, right? But had the pedigree at Mount St. Mary's where he played really well, and kind of hoping to get back to that type of performance and production. You see the numbers down there, right? The points, the steals. You're hoping that he can kind of do those things at our level. Given the opportunity. He's a guy too. I don't know. He's listed at 6'4". You see him out there on the floor though. He looks taller than that to me. See him next to those guys in the exhibition game. He's long and he's athletic. And so, I'm really excited to see kind of what he can bring.
He might play center.
Listen, you never know. We need that backup. We'll see who assumes the mantle.
And this guy here, everyone knows about him outside the conference too.
Yeah. It's Amelie really kind of blew up this summer. As far as some of the draft guys, right? Prognosticating. The guys at No Ceilings, to give them a shout out. One of my favorite NBA draft prognostication groups. Those guys wrote about him. He's gotten a lot of buzz. I think playing for the French national team, I think was great for him. Got him playing high level basketball over the summer, and so people are excited about him. Like I said, there's just not that many people walking this earth that are 7'1" that are willing and able to shoot threes like him, that can handle the ball a little bit, that have kind of the IQ to make some of the passes that he can make. And so, like you said, it's doing some of the center things that you're going to want to see, the improvement upon. You want to see him maybe block some more shots. You want to see him rebound a little bit better. Maybe work a little bit more out of the post to open things up for some other guys. But, I really excited about him. Really excited that we got him back. That was the number one thing. This summer with returning guys. We needed Frenchie and we needed Javon back, and to get them both, to stay Flyers for another year was a huge coup.
No kidding. The way the P4s rate the Atlantic 10 is just
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that he got some substantial offers. So yeah, definitely very excited to have him back and to see what he can do and to continue to develop and see if he can be our next, pro Flyer, developed by Anthony Grant.
He's going to give you more work to do.
That's right.
And this guy, you're expecting a lot from. What I did notice, you have about 3 players who had subpar to not so good seasons coming in the portal, but let's hope that was just an anomaly for him. And Rutgers was a tough place to play. You had 2 top players.
Yeah,
where are you going to get the ball?
Weird situation, right, Scott? I mean, it's not often that you see a program have the lottery picks that they did and not make the tournament. So you kind of want to give Jordan a little bit of a pass there. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, one of my concerns that I have with him is he's been so banged up. He missed a lot of the summer with an injury, and then he sat out the exhibition game with an injury. He had just come back to full practice. The media was in there, 2 weeks ago and said, Jordan Durkak finally back at practice, ready to go. We get to the exhibition game and he's sitting out again. Anthony Grant said that it was a fall and they were, it was precautionary, but it's something to keep an eye on, right? You don't like to see guys missing that much time leading up to the season. But like you said, like you see here, he's got the chemistry with Javon. They played together. He's a tough defender. He's a glue guy. He's someone that we hope is going to be the starter at the 3. Like I said, it could depend on, his availability though, right? They say the best ability is availability. He hasn't exactly had that yet. But we're hoping he's going to be a glue guy and he's going to come in there and be a connector, defend hard, pass, rebound, and show someone what he did at Merrimack, right? Where he was, the best player in the conference as a sophomore.
Dayton East, Merrimack. That's the name of the school.
Yeah.
And when he finally did get the ball, which was hard against Michigan State, he proved himself. So
he's got. I think he's got the ability. It's going to be seeing if he can get that more consistent role with the Flyers and maybe get a chance to kind of show off some of that skill that he was showing at Merrimack that he didn't get a chance to show as much last year. Yeah, Adam Jai is exciting. He's a Bronx point guard, right? Mm-hmm. He's a New York point guard. He's got some sizzle to him. Again, the exhibition is all we have to go off of right now. And last year, and he didn't shoot the ball very well in the exhibition game. And so I know that's going to be the biggest thing for him if he wants to get even more playing time. I think he's going to be kind of the main ball handler off the bench. He's going to be the guy that spells Javon as far as handling the ball. And so it's going to be for him to see if he can get some minutes with Javon, maybe if he can shoot it a little bit better. Like I said, whoever ends up shooting it well off the bench is going to find their way on the floor. It could be him. He's, like I said, he's definitely dynamic. He's going to get up and down the floor. It's just going to be whether or not he can be under control enough, whether or not he can shoot it well enough to kind of stay out there.
Bryce, you heard a lot about him in the last game, the exhibition. You were saying he could shoot.
He played really well in that exhibition game, which was a great sign. He shot the ball really well, and that's gonna be huge. Like I said, whoever it is that does it off the bench, if it's him, he's gonna find the minutes. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, he's a young guy. It's his second year of college basketball already, but he should only be a true freshman. So. I could kind of see it going either way with him as far as the playing time, depending on how well he's doing. But he looked great in the exhibition, and if he can kind of build off of that and continue that, he'll see the floor. So Damon Fryer played a little bit. He played a little bit in the exhibition game. Yeah, he got on the floor a little bit, not a lot. He was kind of among the the last group, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. You have some notes there. He was a pretty highly touted guy too. Someone that, there was some buzz in corners of the internet about maybe being a draft prospect at some point. I don't know if he's going to be able to show it this year. I don't know if he's going to get the time and the chance to do it. But he has the length. He's a longer guy. I don't know if we're going to have room in the rotation for a lot of minutes for him, especially if it's going to be learning. It'll be interesting to see how quickly he develops. And he's another guy too. He shoots it a little bit, and if he can shoot it, maybe he takes some of the Jacob Connor minutes as kind of a longer guy that can, play the four and shoot a little bit. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Like I said, Anthony Grant isn't always keen on giving freshmen a lot of minutes, unless they earn it and unless we need it. And so I think it might be a year for him of, getting in during blowouts, getting spot minutes here and there. And then hopefully, like I said, as always in the NIL era, hopefully we can keep him to develop him, and then next year gets more of a chance to show what he can do.
He looks like a board favorite too.
Yeah. Hey, anytime you win a state title on the floor at UD Arena, he's definitely going to be a favorite of what we call the sweater vest at UD Arena.
Yeah, that's right. And Jacob is a guy that is surprising, a little frustrating because you see the height, and he's got some.
Yeah, he's a hometown kid, right? Played at Kettering Bishop Alter right there, right outside of Dayton. Started his career at Marshall. Had kind of middling numbers there. Had hoped maybe coming home that he would play a little bit better. Kind of an up and down season. But like I said, the coaching staff obviously believes in him. They keep putting him out there on the floor. I think he needs to shoot the ball better. I think that's his key to being, a really helpful player is if he can shoot the 3-point ball. Defensively, he is a good team defender, but at his size, given that he's playing a lot of 3 and 4, he needs to defend a little bit better, and he ends up on the perimeter sometimes, and the individual defense isn't always great. But like I said, as a team defender, he always knows what he's doing. I feel like he's in the right place at the right time, and so it's just going to be the shooting that I think is the biggest differentiator between Jacob Connor having a good season or a bad season, and the amount of time he sees on the floor, frankly.
And then Coach Grant, he's a very serious guy, isn't he?
AG is a kind of a no nonsense guy. That's a pretty classic picture of him there.
Yeah.
People have made up their minds about him. He's been around long enough that people either kind of love him or hate him. I think a lot of people though are, kind of know what he is, right? He's gonna play slower than what we think he should play. He's always kind of done that. And then he's a guy that he's brought in some of the best recruits, all of the best recruits we've ever had, frankly, yeah. Right? I mean, if you look at our recruit rankings, the best players that have ever come to the University of Dayton have been recruited by Anthony Grant, as far as the ratings go, and produced one of the all-time great seasons, right? The COVID season that ended early. But then he's just produced some frustrating seasons. There's been, there was a year we had Tumani Kamara and Duran Holmes were both NBA players, and we didn't make the tournament. That's kind of hard to fathom, right? And that's been the main problem for Flyer fans. We just don't make the tournament often enough. And there's some arguments to be made that sometimes the coaching decisions and some of the style of player are what's held us back in the past. So it's a big year for him. If we can make the tournament, I think that will relieve a good bit of pressure from him because it's a brand new team. But at the same time, if he misses the tournament, I think it's going to increase a lot of pressure on him. So it's definitely like I said, kind of a big year for AG.
Well, Prolo fans have a very short memory.
Yeah. That's what it is, Scott, right? When we make the tournament, everybody's happy. When we don't make the tournament, everybody's mad. And so, that's always what it comes down to. People are going to complain game to game about different things, different decisions. Like I said, everybody wants us to play faster because of the talent disparity, frankly, in the A-10, right? When you're recruiting guys at the level that we are, the analytics will tell you should play fast, right? You should take advantage of it. You should get more possessions for your better players.
Yeah.
AG likes to play slow. Now, down there, right? The KenPom, like the offensive efficiency is always really good. And some people might argue it's because we play so slow that allows you to get that efficiency to hunt the good shots. At the end of the day, though, like you said, it's all about winning and losing and winning the right games, and for Flyer fans making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, the KenPom for defense wasn't so good.
Last year was a bad defensive year. I think, like I said, with the length that we've acquired, the hope is that those numbers go up this year and get us into a better range.
Well, you did have a nice distribution of awards preseason. I do see a lot of VCU, especially on the second team, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, all those guards in VCU, that's gonna be trouble for all of us, right? I mean, that they're gonna be kind of hell to play against, as they always are. But yeah, no, the Flyers did well, right? I mean, we had Javon on the first team, we had Frenchie on the second team, Keonte on the third. You had Javon making the defensive team. So yeah, I mean, you look at this, right, and this is a team that looks like they could be a tournament team, right? When you have kind of this distribution and these, caliber of players at the top end, that makes you think that we should be able to, get over the hump and get in this year.
Wow, Keonte could be the difference maker. Maybe he'd slip into the second team by the end of the
year. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, the exhibition game is the exhibition game, but it's all we have to go on right now. And he looked great. He looked like a guy that, that could be a top 10 player in the conference. We'll see what it looks like night in and night out, but definitely it makes you think that third team could be low, depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, he should have been at USC, you were saying.
Yeah. He was signed, sealed, delivered with USC at one point, and the bigger conferences, right? The way that they do the NIL and bring guys kind of in and out, you can get recruited over in an instant, and I think that's kind of part of what happened there with him was that they signed somebody else, and all of a sudden what looked like a guaranteed role for him wasn't guaranteed anymore. And so he ends up with us, where he is going to get that kind of guaranteed starter's role. Like you said, early on in the season, right? Before Thanksgiving, even, we're going to have played Cincinnati and Marquette, both on the road, both on campus, right? Not even the neutral site games. They're on those campuses. So we're going in the fire quick, and we'll see what we got, right away.
You did say that you'll see how good of a team Dayton is right away.
Yeah, like I said, did those two games before Thanksgiving, and then Georgetown and either BYU or Miami, during that week, we're gonna know, where we stand pretty quick with this team. Whether this is, a potential NCAA tournament team where we're just looking to avoid landmines in the conference, or whether this is looking more like, an NIT team that just had the opportunities and wasn't able to take advantage of them. So we're gonna find that out pretty quick.
And here, it looks pretty cool here. You're starting.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be it. Like I said, the Durkak's health is what I think is gonna determine it. Jacob Connor's the one that started in the exhibition game, and so it's all gonna come down to kind of if Durkak's healthy or not. And if he's healthy, I would expect him to be the 3-man in that lineup.
You want to take a shot at the whole rotation? I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's 5 there, and Thomas is 6. I'm helping you out a little.
Yep. Thomas will be the backup big. Like I said, Jacob Connor, if he doesn't start, I think is going to get a lot of minutes, probably 3-4 off the bench. Jai is going to be the backup point guard. And then, like I said, those other spots are going to kind of come down to who can shoot the ball, who can show that they're reliable. You're going to see Jayon Simon get a chance. You're going to see Bryce Hurd get a chance, especially if he shoots it like he did the other night. Like I said, Fryer, he's a guy that I think might fall out of it. But I think that's probably going to be, the meat of the rotation, what we talked about there.
Here's the toughest question of the night. How are you going to do against VCU this year? This preview will be on their board.
Yeah.
And I think you might get 600 views or so from them
I
because
think we're gonna
you
split
guys
with them.
love.
I feel like we always do. I feel like we always split.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Oh,
it's a
okay.
surprise split. Sometimes it's a win there and they win at our place. But that's my gut feeling. Their guards are really good. That's going to be the differentiator with them. The hope is that they also have a bunch of new guys. They have a new coach, right? That maybe this is a year where they take a step back because of that. They take some time to try to coalesce. But they have a lot of talent, and so I definitely feel like it's going to be another split.
Yeah, and they're the opposite of you. From what I heard, even though they have the talent in the backcourt, they're young and inexperienced.
Yep. Yeah,
In
yeah,
the
and like you
front
said,
court, they have
they're all coming together, right? They're all coming from different places, whether
yeah,
it's true freshmen or coming from different programs. They have a lot to kind of try to figure out, and so like I said, the hope for the rest of us, I think, is maybe that it takes them a little while to do that, and that they have some hiccups along the way. But it's always competitive at the top, and so I would expect nothing less this year.
there is a parallel between you two. They haven't been in the NCAA with a win since 2016. And you guys won in 2017 and 2020. Who knows? You might have been in the national
Yeah.
champion. I know it. I could see pain.
Yeah, that 2020,
People
it's
feel
hard.
pain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's the parallel there. Just a couple other points I wanted to bring up is if Archie coached at Dayton now, it's possible he would not have seen an NCAA because he didn't win any conference tournaments and it's a one bid league for the most part. Just
yeah. I
something to
mean,
chew on.
yeah, it's a good point. And some of those years, a couple of them we barely made it. The
Yeah.
last team in the 1 year we got put in the first four in Dayton. The 1 year, and so it's a fair point. That that how quickly things change, right? Just the landscape of college basketball. But he did get in those years and he won when we were in. He won, and that was what made all the difference in the world, and that's kind of what he's ridden on since then.
Yeah. Well, I always end these podcasts the same way. When it comes to Rhody basketball, it's always go professionally loud. No, go Rhody. Sorry about that. I'm a little sloppy tonight. It's too late. What can I say? You're the king of content, Prolo. Does anyone ever call you Prolo, or is this a new thing?
Usually, I try to get people to just call me Damon now because that's my name ever since
Okay.
the great Dayton beat writer David Jablonski outed me in the Dayton Daily
Yeah.
News. I try to get people to call me Damon, but they know me as Pro Loud. That's the handle on Twitter, and that's what they know me from. So that's fine.
David was on too. This podcast we were talking about the Archie Miller years, and that's going to follow this podcast. I asked him, "How can I interview Archie?" He's like, "Not a chance."
Not Archie's favorite part of the job. Talking to media. He's kind of a basketball only guy, which is not exactly what the job is anymore, right? Like there's a lot of glad handing and talking to people and social aspects of it that maybe even at the beginning of his career, he didn't need to do as much of. That now is just become part of the job that I know that he does not enjoy.
He really has to smile more than Grant, and if you could do that, then that could. Here's a personal question. We're going to wrap it up. Do you sign your kids up for the basketball camp for you to get close to the gym, or is it for them?
That's a good question.
Do they really want to go, or
that's a good question? Well, I'll tell you, they do really want to go. I'm definitely lucky that they enjoy it because I would probably be trying to make them do it either way.
Yes, that's where I was getting at. Well, absolutely, Prolo, you're the best.
No, I appreciate you, Scott. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Anyway, have a great night, and thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.